Everybody had a great holiday weekend. Hope everybody's safe and sound. A lot of fireworks around, at least Lincoln. I'm sure Omaha was lively as well. Did you survive okay, Ben? Did you make it through it? I know you're kind of a get-off-my-lawn kind of guy. I was worried about you a lot.
I'm not a get-off-my-lawn type of guy when the fireworks are within the legal limits. You know, once we make it to July 1st, blow your stuff off all you want to. But June 28th was a little early for my taste. But, yeah, I mean, we made it through okay. My dog didn't love it at all. Baby did a lot better than I thought she would do, considering the tenacity, the intensity that my neighborhood had. If our Husker football team attacks the season like my neighborhood did the 4th of July, Husker fans are going to be pleased.
You also told us on our last show on Thursday that you were planning on hitting the golf course. Did that happen?
That did indeed happen. Hindsight, it was probably a little premature to get out there on a broken toe and hack around for 18 holes, but it was worth it. It was worth all the pain. It was worth all the discomfort because I hadn't been on a golf course in a long time, and to be out there with some friends on a tradition round that we do every year on the 4th of July, it was totally worth it. So I think I've got 2 rounds of golf left in me, Sharpie, before the football season we're hoping starts. So I got to make the most of every round I get out.
Well, you got a few more weekends ahead of you. You should be able to get that done. We did also, not only did we talk about Ben's upcoming golf game on Thursday's show, we also prepped you that there could be some fireworks for Husker football recruiting that would happen on the 4th of July, and indeed they did, as 4-star wide receiver Latrell Neville from Houston, Texas, big tall fellow, 6'4", 190, did pick Nebraska on the 4th of July. Some pretty good fireworks for Husker football, and a guy that we talked a little bit about on Thursday's show. We're going to talk more about it tonight. Michael Bruntz of Husker 24/7 coming up here in a little bit. But give me your scout on Neville in this pickup by Scott Frost and the staff.
Yeah, boy, it's certainly – so every time somebody gets a commit, mainly Nebraska, you run into a process, right? Everybody has their own process of how they learn about each player or how they learn about the new player. You know, Neville was an interesting one because the first thing that stuck out is his size, 6'3", nearly 200 pounds. And my first question then goes to Greg is, what does this do for Nebraska's receiver room? Not necessarily now, but in a year from now. You know, what does that room really look like? Is Nebraska finally going to have something that they haven't had, which is options? Are they going to have players be able to play in the correct spot? How much better is Wan'Dale Robinson going to be with a big body receiver out on the X position, where those bubble screens that Nebraska runs, those straight flat routes that Nebraska runs, where they've had to manipulate it to where Jack Stoll is a lead blocker when they like to be able to just block those tight ends. You think about, you know, some of those receivers that they've had at UCF that make those plays work. You have to be able to block on the perimeter. How much more effective does it make those guys? That's kind of where my mind went with the commitment to Neville. Is you think about all of the big bodies that are now starting to accumulate in that room with Omar Manning, with Xavier Betts, now with Latrell Neville. I think there's a handful more that have committed that are over 6 foot tall. And no longer, Greg, are we talking about Wan'Dale Robinson and J.D. Spielman and Jamie Nance and Demarion Houston and all these guys that are under 5'10". That was always the knock, is what happens when – and Stanley played a lot bigger than he was. Stanley played about 6'4", 6'5", and, you know, he was hardly 6 foot. You know, sometimes you have those guys that play bigger than they are. What does this do for Nebraska's receiver room was my first question. And I think, you know, the coaching staff has really taken to heart, you know, the lack of size that they've had on the outside and go try to address that. You know, back to what I was saying about – kind of commitment process. Like the first thing I do, I always check the measurables. I always check where they're from. And the next thing I always do is check the offer list. Who offered him? And Latrell Nevels is more than impressive. He's one of those guys that could have gone anywhere he wanted: Alabama, Georgia, Auburn, Florida State, Texas. I mean, all of these schools offered him, and he could have gone to any of them. He was a former Virginia Tech commit. He's not overly highly rated, which is interesting. And the other thing that I found interesting is kind of the next thing that I look at with recruits is their high school production, right? How many receptions, how many yards, how many touchdowns. And it didn't necessarily add up, the offer list, with the amount of production that Latrell Neville had. And that leads me to believe that either it was a scheme thing offensively or they had a hard time getting him the ball, played tough. I don't know what the situation was in high school, but a lot of times when you have a high 3-star, low 4-star receiver with that size at a school, the production numbers are a lot higher. And so I wonder what type of fit he's going to be when he comes to Nebraska in terms of what offense he's played in, how quick he's going to grasp the playbook, and how much more explosive can this guy be with an offense that's conducive to his play style. So I think, to me, that's kind of where I go with it. One more quick point on his commitment. Anybody that kind of did their due diligence on his situation, you knew he was a pretty heavy Nebraska lean. And a lot of times when that's the case, somebody's a heavy Nebraska lean, it doesn't make their commitment as exciting, but it needs to be, because think about what a shot in the gut that would have been if he posted a Twitter graphic saying he was going to the University of Florida, and how shocked he would have been. So I know a lot of people expected him to commit. That shouldn't make the commitment less exciting. Be appreciative, be glad, and don't let the lack of surprise be the lack of excitement, I suppose, because this one would have hurt, Greg. If we were hearing everything, he was tweeting at our recruits, and you were following the Twitter detective trail on who he was hot on. That's becoming a pretty big tell for me, the Twitter machine, of where kids' heads are at. It's pretty hard for them to hide it if they're active on social media. And Latrell Neville left a cookie trail of crumbs into Memorial Stadium, and I'll tell you what, that would have been a really disappointing one, having all that kind of intel in front of you, at the last second have that ripped away saying he was going somewhere else. So although I wasn't surprised, that doesn't mean I wasn't excited, and fans should be excited.
Yeah, he kept dropping a red balloon on like his Twitter handles, and that kind of gave you a feeling that it was going to be a Husker, and certainly glad to get him. This is the young guy that had decommitted a couple months ago from Virginia Tech. Nebraska swooped right in and got on him. It's the 11th commitment of the 2021 class for Nebraska. 5 of them, so nearly 50%, have committed to Nebraska football since Memorial Day. So between Memorial Day and the 4th of July, Nebraska picked up about half of this class. It's good work being done by this staff during the recruiting trail during when June's usually a busy month for camps and those type of things, which all got canceled because of COVID. But this staff continued to kind of motor through that. And I don't know that they're done yet. I think they may get a couple more before summer ends. We'll hear more and get Michael Bruns's thoughts again coming up here on that in just a little bit. Austin had this in the ticker that Nebraska Athletics today did release a new mobile app that will feature mobile tickets, which is what Nebraska's going to now for all their athletic events. Football, volleyball, men's, women's basketball, volleyball, baseball, all that is now going to be mobile ticketing. You're going to have an app to be able to do this. This is really become a trend across the country. We saw it happen at the College World Series 2 years ago. They went to this, where they're not sending you hard copy tickets anymore to bring in. And I know there are people that collect those. Austin also mentioned that they're going to have a ticket within each week's game program, that you could still buy the program and get a collector's ticket. But this is, one, it's a safety issue to try to get people in the venues. You don't have to hand somebody a ticket or carry those. This is going to be pretty seamless. It's kind of the wave of the future, and I know some people are going to be not real comfortable with this, if they don't have a smartphone, they're going to have to kind of figure something else out to do this. But this is kind of the way of the future, Ben, is going to these ticketless events. A lot of concerts have gone that way in the last couple of years as well.
Yeah, and unfortunately it's something that we're just going to have to get used to. And as you said, there's a lot of people out there that are it's tradition for them to get them in the mail, and all these things that have meant something to them personally for a long time, collect them. But obviously with the times, you got to stay up with them. And one thing that needs to be understood is we're in pretty severe danger, Greg, of not having a football season, and fans and the athletic department and really everybody involved are going to have to get used to things being done differently this year to make this happen. I mean, we all are going to have to give a little bit to make this as safe as possible, and to make it so the contact, the personal contact, the safety is on the forefront, and this is just one of those things. And quite honestly, if you think about how many times tickets change hands, you think about how many times people have their tickets in their hand and exchange contact with somebody else. It's kind of a brilliant idea from the athletic department, if you think about it, to be on that initiative. And we talked a lot about a couple months ago all of the things that are going to need to be done for all the questions that are going to need to be answered with COVID, and there's a lot of them, and this is some of the solution that the athletic department has come up with, and part of those questions that fans are going to have to make it safe for them to go watch the Huskers play. So I know it's going to be different. I know it's going to make some people upset, but this isn't going to be the only thing that's different. This isn't going to be the only thing that's new and things that you're going to have to get used to, this year. So the best advice I have is to just wear it, embrace it, and if this helps us all enjoy the Huskers playing sports this year, it's a small sacrifice that we can make to make that possible.
One thing that people are going to have to get used to, ticket and parking transfers are not available at this time. And I know there are a lot of people who share season tickets or can't go 1 week and want to get their tickets to somebody else. That's going to be something they're going to have to navigate their way through. We've been talking about this Huskers app for a couple of years now. It's really, I use it all the time when the Huskers are playing, whatever sport it is. It's an easy download. You can go find it. And wherever you download your apps off of, it's an easy way to find that. So I would go, if you don't have that Huskers app on your mobile device now, get that part of it done, and then you can start to train yourself on how to use that. And the tickets should be arriving 2 to 3 weeks before the start of the season. We'll have more about this as we move along throughout the show tonight as well. All right, those are some of the headlines of the day. A lot more to get to later on, including Major League Baseball releasing their schedule, Patrick Mahomes' new contract in Kansas City. We'll touch on all that throughout the program tonight. When we come back, Ben McLaughlin's going to sit down with Michael Bruns, Huskers 24/7. That's straight ahead.
On a Monday evening, off and rolling here tonight. Hopefully everybody had a nice, safe 4th of July holiday and back into the swing of things here today on a Monday. We welcome on to the first guest of the night, our good friend Michael Bruns from 24/7 Sports. Brunsy, first of all, hopefully had a nice, safe 4th of July holiday with the little one. Were you able to get back and relax and have a little barbecue food and hang out with the family at all this weekend with everything going on?
Yeah, a little grilling. Let the neighbors handle the explosions and the purchasing of the fireworks. I don't really get into the exploding stuff too much. I kind of leave that up to the neighbors to take care of. But it was good. It's relaxing, and definitely felt like everybody kind of emptied the tank a little bit with the 4th of July this year, which was a little bit of normalcy, but it just tons of explosions. I don't know if it was that way where you are.
It kind of felt like they were taking out, the COVID frustration on the pyrotechnics. Like let's assume this COVID is this artillery shell that I'm about to blow up, and maybe people got to blow off some steam. I don't know.
It was definitely more than a few smoke bombs in my neighborhood. I know that much.
Well, we were waiting for an announcement on the 4th of July commitment-wise, or not an overly popular day to announce a commitment, but I know a lot of Husker fans were glued to their Twitter pages doing a lot of refreshing. There were even some current Husker commits that were poking and prodding Latrell Neville for his commitment. All of the Twitter action, pretty obvious in Nebraska lean, so I don't know if it was a huge surprise, but a surprise the other way would have been devastating. Start first, Brunty, with the work that the coaching staff did in positioning themselves to get this young man, a one-time Virginia Tech commit, to want to come play for the Huskers.
Yeah, like you said, former Virginia Tech commit. He's out of Hightower High School in Texas, and the thing that you kind of go to first with Latrell Neville, 6'3", 195 pounds, and when you compare with that size, and when you start talking about Omar Manning, who's every bit of 6'4", you've got Xavier Betts on campus, who let's say 6'2", 6'3", somewhere in there. Nebraska's really kind of, you look at what they've done over the last couple of recruiting classes. They've really changed the look of that wide receiver room. Sean Hardy out of Georgia is the other wide receiver commit in this class. He's 6'3", 190. So. Nebraska wanted to get bigger at wide receiver. I think you've seen, guys that are a little bit shorter stature certainly have some success, J.D. Spielman being one. But, when you're throwing those quick passes to the outside and you need somebody to block, it looks a little bit different when you've got, 6'3", 190 or 6'4", 220 like Omar Manning is on the outside. And I think Nebraska, kind of, really positioned itself with the offense that they run, that it's really built for playmakers. And, I think Matt Lubick definitely kind of struck a pretty good relationship pretty quickly with Latrell Neville, and that was a big reason why he committed. So they're up to 11 commits now, but, I think you kind of have to like the size that Nebraska has really added to its wide receiver room in the past couple classes here.
Bruns, I know with the season kind of in limbo right now, just assuming for a second there is a season and everything's normal and we're covering a fall camp and we can ask the questions that are all relative to football. One of the biggest question marks and concerns for Nebraska's offense and really just team in general is going to be the wide receiver position. Obviously, you lose J.D. Spielman. Nebraska's going to have a ton of production there last year as it is, even with J.D. I'm asking you a question that none of us know the answer to, but how would you personally kind of assess where Nebraska is right now with the wide receiver spot and what to expect in terms of production for guys that we haven't necessarily seen do it before at a Division I level or at a school like Nebraska?
Yeah, I mean, you like the room, as they've kind of had to rebuild it, in these last couple of recruiting classes. Like you said, I mean, the potential's there. The production, at the FBS level and in the Big Ten, we just don't know yet. But, when you look at a guy like Omar Manning, he was the #1 JUCO wide receiver in the country this past year. He spent time at TCU, a guy that was very productive in the junior college ranks. Marcus Fleming out of Miami, another guy that was a 1,000-yard wide receiver. He's one of the quickest high school wide receivers in Florida in his class last year. Xavier Betts out of Bellevue West, a tremendously productive kid at Bell West. So, the potential is there. It's just a matter of, coaching those guys up, getting the most out of them. Alante Brown's another one that was already on campus and went through 2 spring practices and impressed the coaches, I know. So, the potential's there. It's just a matter of, getting those guys ready to go and kind of throwing them in. You don't really have another option right now. So, maybe the fact that you have a little bit more of a veteran group at tight end, certainly helps there. You've got Wandale Robinson that's going to be playing a lot more at wide receiver this year, which I think is more of his natural spot than what he played last year. So, potential's there, but, like everything, you kind of have to see it, on the field to really believe it. But I know that Nebraska really likes the talent that they've brought in to kind of reshape that room going into this season.
I think one of the big things that people kind of lose sight of, and they want, a lot of times we just look at the scoreboard or we look at records at the end of the year and say, teams 4-8, teams 5-7, teams this far away, whatever it is. I guess the question that I have for you is, how different could a Scott Frost offense look when he has the full complement of offense and tools that he wants to have, and he's not having to solve a Rubik's Cube when he looks at his play sheet and run Luke McCaffrey at wide receiver and run a reverse pass, and he can just run the offense that he wants to run when the personnel is on the field? How close do you feel like Nebraska is to that point?
Well, I think they're closer. I mean, and I think that's, it's a bit of a complicated answer, because I think, the one thing that will help Nebraska in a lot of ways is to have a more consistent running game. I think that's what hurt them last year, especially between the tackles. I think the fact that you have a veteran offensive line coming back with a lot of depth, you had your starting running back coming back, that helps the passing game and the ability to get up to the line and play tempo, which is such an important part of Scott Frost's offense that we really haven't seen yet. When you kind of go back and look at, what they did at Oregon and how fast they were running things when Scott Frost caught plays there, Nebraska hasn't even scratched the surface of that yet. And it's just a matter of finding playmakers and finding enough competition to put around Adrian Martinez and hoping that Adrian has a bounce-back season, because, I think if he can, kind of dial things in and improve on what he was as a freshman, that helps that offense a ton. I mean, there's just a lot of different kind of threads to pull on that I think will make things easier for Scott Frost as a play caller. You kind of go back to some of those games last year, and it was pretty clear that Nebraska was struggling to establish anything or find something to kind of hang its hat on. So, personnel is part of it. There's just so much that goes into that. But I think that, they're starting to get to the point with this roster and the talent on the roster where they can get a little bit closer to running that tempo and things like that are kind of the hallmarks of what Scott Frost did at Oregon and also UCF.
Brentsy, there's a couple of recruits still out there. One is currently committed, one is currently not, that I want to ask you about, that are two pretty hot names right now in Lincoln. And the first one is just right across the way in Iowa with a tight end and Thomas Fedoni. When you look at his skill set, the schools that are in on him, the relationship that Nebraska's built with him, where do you see Nebraska's positioning with a lot of the interest that he's gathering with other schools, and Nebraska's shot, I guess, in the end of winning out on this?
Yeah, I think Nebraska's got a great shot. They offered Thomas Fedoni early. He's been to Lincoln multiple times. Nebraska has made it about as clear as you can, I think, to a prospect how important he is to their class and the future of their offense. I think that he would be a fantastic fit in kind of what Nebraska wants to do at tight end. But, he, like a lot of guys right now, are kind of in a bit of a holding pattern with regards to the recruiting calendar. The NCAA has extended their dead period out till basically August 31st, so he's not able to do any on-campus visits. A lot of the offers that he has received in the spring came after everything was kind of shut down. And so, you've got Iowa there. He's been there. The one school I think that's pretty intriguing to him that he hasn't really been able to see is LSU. They've been pursuing him pretty hard as well. Ed Orgeron's involved there, and they've kind of really been trying to make a push. But I think it kind of depends on, his timeline depends on, if he's able to make visits in the fall, what that kind of looks like. And, I think Nebraska continues to be in a good spot for him, but it's one of those things that you just don't know what the next month or two is going to hold with regards to his recruitment. And, I can see if this goes into the fall more, maybe he just shuts it down. But, a guy that I think Nebraska's in a really nice job at this point, recruiting and really making a priority. And he's a talent worth doing that for.
Brentsy, for as real of a situation and tangible information that we have on Fedoni, the next guy I'm going to ask you about, it's all hyperbole, it's all speculation, it's all what I'm going to call Twitter mind reading, and that's a guy in Terrence Lewis from Miami Northwestern who's currently committed to Tennessee, but he's constantly tweeting out these cryptic "Go Big Reds." These still appears to be interest with Nebraska. From what you know about Terrence Lewis, his situation, his teammates, obviously, and Ronald Delancey and Marcus Fleming, high school teammates here. Is this just to keep them happy, or is this thing not shut and dry? Could there still be some movement with one of the top, if not the top linebacker prospect, 5-star in the country?
Yeah, I mean, I think, his recruitment would be probably a little bit different if you were able to make visits over the summer. I know Nebraska was one place that before he committed to Tennessee, he was wanting to visit and check out. You mentioned the fact that you have the poll with teammates, in last year's recruiting class, and they're on campus, and I think that matters. And there were other schools that were really involved with him as well. Texas A&M was a big one, and it just feels like one of those recruitments that, if he's committed to Tennessee or wherever he's committed, it feels like a recruitment that's very much going to go down to the wire, whatever that is. If that's December or February or whatever ends up happening with the COVID stuff and National Signing Day. He's a talented kid. Schools are not going to stop recruiting him. Nebraska has not stopped recruiting him. And, I continue to think that there's going to be movement there. Nebraska's involved. I just think that, it feels like a recruitment that's going to go on for a while. So I wouldn't be surprised if the cryptic tweets continue. And I think his name's going to be one that Nebraska fans are probably going to want to keep an eye on throughout the fall.
Well, I think, I'm only speaking for me, but I have to imagine I'm speaking for Husker fans too, that it's kind of like that ex-girlfriend that you secretly hope comes back or, reaches out, one of those type situations. But maybe it's just us being hopeful. Maybe it is real, but I know for one thing, if I'm a Tennessee fan and I'm seeing him tweet stuff at Nebraska and tweet at Nebraska recruits, it's making me feel a little unsettled. I think it's making this conversation worth having. And I know, Husker fans are definitely following him and his recruitment, as you said, into December and maybe even into February. So Nebraska, we do know that they picked up their 11th commitment in Latrell Neville. Brunty, I want to get your thoughts very quickly before we go about Nebraska baseball recruiting and the job that Will Bolt and Lance Harvell and Jeff Christie and Danny Marcuzzo have been able to do in the 2020-2021 classes right here in the state, just nailing recruit after recruit and big-time recruits. I can't remember of a stretch of 2 years as deep and as talented as a recruiting pool right here in the state of Nebraska.
Yeah, I mean, they really have been aggressive, even with all the challenges that the COVID-19 has created. I mean, you lose your season, you only get 15 games of it to really kind of see what you've got on your roster. And, I think that staff has done a really good job of, addressing needs that they can through the transfer portal for next season. I think they've done a nice job of identifying guys locally who, are definitely going to be talents, down the road. And also even ahead in the 2023 class of finding local guys. And I think what you're seeing with the staff, they said when they came here that they wanted to kind of build around local kids. And, baseball in Nebraska has always been good. You know that. You played baseball in the state and high school. But, what you're seeing now is, with some of the travel teams, Nebraska prospects, those guys are getting out younger in their careers. They're seeing better pitching. They're facing better hitters. And, I think the staff has really kind of tapped into a nice relationship with a lot of these kids. They're being open and honest with where these kids stand with them. They're starting those relationships early, and that's kind of what you have to do with baseball recruiting because it's such a quick decision sometimes with these recruits. But they've done a really good job, I think, of really, knowing the local landscape and also putting in the legwork, last summer with getting out to events and games and kind of following up with that this spring as well. So, I know that the football and basketball recruiting always kind of takes precedent, but I don't think there's been a hotter program on the recruiting trail the last couple of months in Nebraska baseball.
Yeah, been a lot of fun to watch happen, and definitely every time we see the Big Lebowski tweet, news is about to happen, and it's been getting a lot of play on Twitter, that's for sure. Coach Arvell.
You've seen the dude a lot.
Yeah, just love it, absolutely love it. Brunsey, we appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for giving us some time. Hopefully you and the family are doing well, staying safe, and keeping the little one occupied and entertained during this very, very troubling and concerning time. Thanks for jumping on with us, man.
No problem, Ben. Take care, all right?
You too. Michael Bruns, 24/7 Sports with us here on Sports Nightly. Appreciate his time very much and look inside Husker recruiting. Michael joins us on our Woodhouse Auto Family hotline, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. We got more Sports Nightly coming up.
5371, the number if you want to dot us up with a comment or question. Thanks again to Michael Bruns from Huskers 24/7 for joining the program to update us on Husker football recruiting. A little baseball chatter there at the end as well. Speaking of baseball, Major League Baseball has released their schedule. Have you looked through much of that yet? I know the Royals open on the road at Cleveland. But, yeah, they're all out. MLB Network had a little show half hour, 45 minutes ago to show out the schedules.
I did take a look at it. It was great to see. I think just seeing the guys work out at all the camps and seeing the guys take BP. Watching Mookie Betts take BP with the Dodgers today, and it's becoming more real. Trevor Bauer and his iconic Trash Town Houston shirt that he wore, calling them the chumps and the cheaters and all that. Very like him, but. Yeah, it was just really cool to see that it's finally here. It felt like a long time coming, and for as sore and as hurt as I was that it took so long to get here, I am glad that they finally got to this point, and I think we're all just going to sit back and hopefully enjoy some baseball here before too long.
July 23rd, that's a Thursday. That will be the opening day. You'll have the Nationals hosting the Yankees, and then a game for the West Coast, the Giants traveling to play the Dodgers. So you'll have a doubleheader on ESPN that night to get it going. Pretty much everybody else in baseball gets going on Friday the 24th. That's not far away. I mean, we're already to July 6th, so just a couple of weeks away. They had some testing snafus where some teams took some tests on Friday, didn't get some results back today. I think the holiday fouled that up a little bit, so some teams did not have workouts today. Some did not have workouts today, but they look like they're on their way to going to play some baseball here in a couple of weeks. The other big story today revolves around Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs, who came to terms with the Chiefs today. Our boy Ian Rappaport, the NFL Network, reporting that the Chiefs and Patrick have agreed to terms on a 10-year extension worth, sit down, Ben, $503 million.
Boy, it's definitely one of those deals where you knew it was coming, right? Like, we all knew that Patrick Mahomes was going to sign for a stupid amount of money. But, as a Chiefs fan, you don't really want the alternative, right? I mean, you don't want him to not be a Chief, but, you just knew that a talent like that's going to come around and literally shock the world. Greg, it's the biggest sporting contract in the history of North America. It doesn't matter the sport, doesn't matter the position or athlete, team, whatever. That is the largest sporting contract ever in the history of North America. And you had a feeling it was going to be huge, and you had a feeling it was going to be that big, but you brace for impact when the details came out, because you know that it's going to be bad. I will give Kansas City some credit, though. The way that they structured it, it's one of a kind. It's not one of those deals that's extremely backloaded. They for as much as they're going to pay him, they might have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to salary cap. And I know Brett Veach has been reading every book when it comes to penny pinching a salary and penny pinching a salary cap, because the Chiefs have had to do that. They're literally down to 50 cents of what they can pay guys, and so when you're having to sign Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and Chris Jones and Tyrann Mathieu and Frank Clark and Sammy Watkins, and am I missing anybody? I mean, it's like you're having to sign all these guys. It's impossible that you can hold on to them all, but you want to hold on to as many as you can for as long as you can.
Are you saying this is the modern-day Bobby Bonilla deal that they just put together?
No, because I hope Patrick Mahomes is still playing when this contract is up. He'll be just 32 years old, so
something like that. Yeah,
so
maybe a little older than that. 33.
He'll have some playing days left. He's not going to be playing having 20 off years before his paychecks are over.
The key thing for Patrick, of the $503 million, $477 is guaranteed. I mean, he's guaranteed. He could get injured this season and never play again, and he's guaranteed $477. It's a huge deal. In NFL, when you look at an NFL contract, you look at the guarantee number, because that's really all that it is. Other than that, it's just kind of bonuses and stuff that they do. But the guarantee, I remember when Sue was signing his big deals, I think he got like $64 million guarantee in that Dolphins deal that he did 5-6 years ago. That's the key figure, because that's, you're getting $477 for Patrick Mahomes. Yowzer. That is unbelievable. All right, 866-HUSKER-1, 866-487-5371. Need to take a break. Back with a wrap-up the hour next. Bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. John on Twitter tweeted at me, $137,000 per day for Patrick Mahomes.
That would almost get hard to spend.
Holy moly. That is one gigantic contract. I think Mike Trout had the biggest pro contract in the 4 big sports before this, and Mahomes now jumps over the top of it. You knew he would. You knew the Chiefs would be creative. You knew they had to. I mean, what this guy has done in just 2 seasons as a starter in the NFL, I don't know that anybody's really ever matched it. I saw some numbers of Dan Marino's first 2 years in the league, kind of close to that, but Mahomes just does some different things than what Marino can do. And I love Dan Marino. I thought he was a fantastic player. But and I think Mahomes is the kind of guy, too, Ben, that he realizes you can't win football games by yourself. You've got to have people around you if you want to be good and win. I think Mahomes is smart enough to know he's going to have to work with the club at various points in times to make sure they can put a competitive product on the field.
Well, if nothing else, I mean, if you're going to take your defenders off the table and just load up on offense, then you're going to take some of your skill guys off the table. At the very least, you better be, if you're Patrick Mahomes and you're willing to sacrifice all that, you're not willing to sacrifice who's blocking for you. I mean, it's not. He's going to need playmakers. He knows he needs playmakers, but at the same time, he also needs guys up front that can block for him, and a defense that can make stops when they need to. So, yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation to navigate, because obviously you want yours, you want to be taken care of, and you're going to be. And if you feel like you're the best, like Patrick Mahomes is, then you're going to want to be paid that way. But at the same time, if it's going to cripple your team, that's not going to be very much fun either. Losing every Sunday and running for your life every snap. So let's hope there's enough on the table, and there should be plenty for the Chiefs to want to build a team around him and keep some of these guys together.
Well, huge deal for the defending Super Bowl champions, and the guy who his first year as a full year as a starter was the MVP of the league. I'm glad they got it done now. I mean, it's before training camp. He still had another year to go anyway, but I think hey, kudos to the Chiefs. I mean, they got this thing done. There's no way it's a distraction moving forward now for that franchise. Mahomes can take all the money questions now and kind of be done with it before the season even gets cranked up a little bit. So kudos to the Chiefs. They kind of operated this thing pretty well, and can now move on and know that they got their guy for 10 years, which is a huge deal for anybody who's a Chiefs fan. I'm one of those, so I'm certainly happy about all this today. So, yeah. All right. We've had a busy hour here. Major League Baseball schedule came out a little bit ago. Our ticket app, we talked about that. We're going to talk more about that coming up a little later on. Latrell Neville, we touched on him. He was the young man from the Houston area who committed to Nebraska football over the weekend as the Huskers get cranked up. We're about a week away from really kicking in to our football programming here on Sports Nightly, Ben. We're going to start up our position breakdowns a week from tomorrow night. We had some fun with the guys today putting together our preseason top 25. I think it's flawless. One guy even said it's the best top 25 we've ever put together.
Yeah, no pressure on that, right? I mean, it's probably going to turn into the worst with that type of talk. But, yeah, there wasn't too many disagreements. And I think, at this point, we're all just hoping there's a season. We're hoping that this preseason top 25 matters. And, we can debate this later on. But, yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think it went pretty smooth comparatively to other years. And, we'll see – we'll see if this thing happens and how much the schedules are reflected, because we talk about that a ton in those meetings as schedules and assuming everything's going to be the same. But it was fun. It felt a little normal. It felt like normal to have that type of chatter and to be able to talk football that should matter. It was great. So we're probably going to go 25 for 25 this year.
It's one of my funnest meetings, and I'm using air quotes on that, of the year. And I bought my first football magazine over the weekend.
You did.
I splurged in that.
You're all in. Now you're all in.
I'm all in. I dove in. The 4th of July weekend is when I rip the Band-Aid and go, let's go all in. College football, here we come. Yeah. Thanks. Good hour here on Sports Nightly. Here on the Husker Sports Network. Hope you all had a wonderful holiday weekend and were safe, responsible out there with those fireworks, and maybe got sunburned at the lake or the pool over the weekend. A lot of sunshine, a lot of heat here on a summertime in July. Big hour coming up. Adam Rittenberg of the ESPN college football writer, who's a weekly guest with us during the college football season, going to check in with us. It's been a little bit over a month since we last touched base with Adam. And then later on in the hour, Brandon Meyer, assistant athletic director for University of Nebraska, going to join us to talk about the big announcement today that Austin had in the ticker there about ticketing going to an app. So no more physical tickets being handed to you. Just get the tickets on your app, and you'll be able to get into any venue, whether it's volleyball or football, baseball, basketball, any of those type of Husker sporting events. You'll be using the app now, no longer handed with tickets. Austin, I think Adam is close, but still not able to hear us yet, so I don't know if we need to redo some routing or what back there. So we'll just I can hear Adam in the background, but we want to make sure he can hear me so we can get this underway and get cranked up here. So if you can work on that, I'll just keep kind of going through some of the headlines of the day. Major League Baseball released their schedule about an hour ago. There'll be a couple of games on the 23rd, which is the Thursday of July. It will be the Yankees and the Nationals playing, followed by the Giants and the Dodgers. So 2 games to kick off Major League Baseball on July 23rd. Everybody else will get going on the 24th. Everybody's got their own schedules. You play everybody in your own division, and you cross over and you play the comparative division from the other league. So if you're in the AL Central, you play the NL Central. If you're in the NL West, you play the AL West. 4 games out there. Austin, what do you want to do here? Should we just call him? Okay, well, I'll text him, tell him we're just going to call him. Sorry, folks. Technology, gotta love it. All right, so Adam Rittenberg coming up here in just a couple of minutes here. We'll talk some college football with Adam, and then get into hearing from Brandon Meyer from the athletic department about the new app that Nebraska announced today for tickets. It'll also be your parking will be on that as well. So it will allow you to be able to enter the Husker venues without having to hand over a piece of paper or tickets or those type of things. So Nebraska's trying to go into that, and this is happening all across the country as well for broadcasting for concerts. You see it at concerts, you see it at ball games, all those type of things are going this way. Again, probably does require a smartphone of some type to get your app downloaded, and you can get into that. We'll get some more particulars from that from Brandon coming up here in a couple of minutes. College football, everybody's trying to get ready for some geared-up times. People that play Week 0 games, and there's 5 or 6 of those, are going to actually get to go bump up their time spent with student-athletes to 20 hours next week. The Huskers also can start increasing their work with coaches and players starting next week, and then into almost a kind of a mini camp will start on July 24th. So all that is fast approaching. And we're now fast approaching, a chance to talk with Adam Rittenberg of ESPN.com. Adam, how you doing? Hope you had a good 4th of July.
Yeah, Greg, I did. I hope you did too, and great to be on with you.
Well, it's been about 5 weeks since we've touched base. I know you're constantly talking to coaches, to athletic directors. What are you hearing? You're probably hearing a lot of different things from these guys as they're all trying to navigate their way through this strange virus.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. I think we knew it was going to be, and I think the optimism has certainly gone downhill the last few weeks with some of the large numbers, especially in the South and the West. And I think there's just greater uncertainty now about you actually having students on campus at many campuses this fall. And if you can't have students on campus and you can't have in-person classes, I think it's just a very tough situation to try to go ahead with fall sports. And so, more coaches are calling me now and just asking me what I'm hearing about the season and are we going to have a season. I know there's been some, increased talk about maybe moving the season to the spring, and we could see the Ivy League and some of the other smaller conferences decide to do that this week. I do think one thing that people need to keep in mind, I think when we see football again, it's going to look really different. I think one idea that to me makes the most sense, just because at least if you're in a conference, you're getting advice from the same medical group, and you understand more or less what the resources are at each school's disposal. I think we're going to see conference-only seasons, whether that's this fall or in the spring, and then we'll sort out the national championship and whatever else in the playoff. But I think that's probably the safest way to play this sport in particular, is to just go conference only. And in the Big Ten, whether that's 9 games or 10 games or whatever, that's probably the way it's going to go.
Yeah, that makes some sense to me. The one thing that I've thought a lot about this spring football, and I know you've written about it, you've talked to people about it. I don't know that anybody knows it's going to be any better in the spring. So if you just put it off till the spring and it's not any better, then you've lost your year. I mean, that to me, that and the shortened recovery time for these student athletes, if you get going next fall, I think that'd be really hard for football players, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously it could certainly work for many schools and many athletes, but I think any athlete that has a real chance of getting to the NFL or is projected to be an NFL draft pick, they'd be out of their mind to play in the spring. And I say that as someone who would love to see Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and all these other great players, Penei Sewell from Oregon, out there whenever the season takes place. But if I were advising them, I would say absolutely do not play in the spring. It's just too risky. And then you mentioned the shorter turnaround time, and then just the realities of the virus. I mean, if there's going to be this second wave that everyone's talking about, that's going to still be happening in December. And then you expect a season to start in January, or you expect people to get back on campus to prepare for a season that starts in February. Again, it could come to that. It could be successful. I just have a lot of concerns about it. I think what's still a possibility is as many leagues or as many schools as feel comfortable at least starting the season this fall, start the season, and then we'll see how it goes. And there could be some interruptions. There probably will be some interruptions, and it'll be very unusual, but at least you'll have the season in its normal window. I think where you really get into some trouble potentially is when multiple seasons are impacted. You would hope by next fall there either will be a widespread vaccine or there will be better treatment for those who get this, or just an easier way to prevent outbreaks. But yeah, there's obviously a lot of those same questions, like you said, would pertain to the spring season or early winter season than there is to the fall season.
Yeah, I line up with you. I think if you can try to give it a go, and if you have to just go to 8 games and play conference only, let's do that. I just don't know that you guarantee getting anything better in the spring if you put it off. It may be worse in the spring. So I think and people don't seem to talk about that. And I know you've kind of gotten in some Twitter spats with some of your colleagues around the country. I know Stuart Mandel's been a big proponent of trying to play in the spring, but I see some issues with that I don't know that necessarily are here right now. How are the workouts going on campuses that are having some? And these have been all voluntary to this point in time. What are they getting guys into football shape? What are you hearing?
Yeah, overall, the coaches that I've talked to actually have been very pleased with the way their players came in. A lot of them, were able to work out on their own. It's not like they're coming in, significantly behind just from a physical conditioning standpoint. And a lot of the coaches have said that they actually, by having players on these Zoom calls throughout the spring, they've actually been able to learn a lot and do more of the football learning than maybe they even would be with a spring practice. Now, certainly nothing is a substitute for on-field work, and they haven't had much, if any, of that for most places around the country. And so that's what coaches obviously would like to see, and that's where the greatest risk comes with the virus and not knowing everything, just having these guys actually start the contact drills. So that wouldn't happen for a few weeks from now. So again, as several commissioners and other folks around the Power Five told my colleague Heather Dinich in a really good story up on ESPN.com right now today, I think the next few weeks are going to be critical. We'll obviously get an announcement from the Ivy League on Wednesday about what they're going to do with their fall sports. And, it looks like they're going to head to the spring, but I don't know if that necessarily means everybody's going to follow. There will be other leagues that might follow that. Other leagues like the Big Ten might wait a little longer to see how it goes these next few weeks. But there's certainly a lot of challenges with the number of schools that are stopping workouts or fairly high numbers of positive tests. Thankfully, it does not seem like many of the football players who have tested positive have serious symptoms, and I haven't heard about any hospitalization. So that's certainly good news. But it's just a very tricky thing to manage, Greg, and one that will seemingly get trickier when the student body returns to campus.
Yeah, there's no doubt. You're bringing people from all corners of the world on some of these college campuses that they're going to be showing up here in a month or so to a lot of these, particularly these Big Ten campuses. I was going to try to nail you down on the timeline. You kind of put it out there. I'm with you. I think we have a couple of more weeks that these ADs can kind of sit back and see what happens with these numbers over the few weeks. And maybe they learn something from Major League Baseball and the NBA when those sports get cranked up again.
Right. Well, I think the thing that's really interesting, and I haven't gotten a great answer on this, and some of the ADs I've talked to are still kind of waiting, is what is our testing going to look like during that period of the season, essentially Labor Day till Thanksgiving, even though it may be shorter than that. Are we going to have a reliable testing and maybe more important, quick and as important, I should say, the quick results. We cannot wait 2, 3, 4 days, and you saw that with Major League Baseball today, to get those results in. We need to know if we're getting on a plane or we're getting on 5 buses that everybody on that bus is negative, because otherwise then you're just asking for a major outbreak where you're endangering not only everybody in your traveling party but the opponent. And so that's, I think, the area that we really need to get sorted out. I had a good friend of mine. She just got a COVID test yesterday and got the result within an hour. So if that's the case, and most teams have that ability, then then I think we're in much better shape. But that's not what I've heard from many ADs, even at places that have great access to medical schools and different types of tests. They're saying it's still taking a day or 2 days or 3 days to get reliable results that we would feel comfortable saying, okay, everybody in Nebraska's traveling party is clear and everybody in the opponent's traveling party is clear. We feel comfortable to have this event go on.
Do you think these commissioners talk much, Adam, particularly the Power 5 conference commissioners? Are they in constant communication, sporadic communication? How would you label that?
Very frequent communication. They have multiple calls a week. Sometimes they're on 3-4 times a week, and they're trying to coordinate as best they can. And again, I think most of those schools have pretty good resources. It was interesting. I know the University of Arizona shut down their team workouts last Monday, I believe. But look at Arizona's situation. They did it much more because of what was happening in the region. It had nothing. They only had one positive test at that point in terms of football players that had come back to campus. Their president is, an expert in infectious diseases. I spoke to their athletic director, Dave Hickey, and he was telling me about all the different types of tests they have and just a great, knowledge base on their campus. So they really are set up well. But unfortunately, what's happening around them in their state and in their country, in their county, is just so kind of untenable and scary that they had to essentially say, we can't keep bringing football players and other athletes back to campus. It's just too dangerous. So part of this is not so much that the school environment. I think in some cases in the media we've painted these schools as these unsafe places, and these athletes are being forced to be there. I think in many cases they're actually the safest places to be, but unfortunately you have the other variables, what's going on in the state, what's going on in the city, and then you have obviously other students, as we just talked about, that are coming into that campus and haven't been tested and could be bringing the virus.
Yeah, that echoes Bill Moose at Nebraska. He has said for months he believes the safest place for his athletes are right here on campus, where they can kind of keep them in a bit of a bubble around the football complex or whatever athlete, whatever facility that they use. So that kind of matches up with that. Well, Adam, we appreciate it. I know there's more questions than answers at this point in time, but we always appreciate your insight on that, and hopefully we get some better news on the virus as the weeks come ahead and we get some football played here in the fall.
Indeed. Yeah, I think the next 2 weeks are critical. And, again, by the end of this month, I think we'll have a real good idea about who is playing and when they're playing. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Adam. I'm with you. Adam Rittenberg joining us on our Sports Nightly Hotline, brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto Family, bringing you more choices in brands, locations, and service. Experience the difference. Purchase with confidence. This is Woodhouse. The Husker Athletic Department announced today new mobile app featuring mobile tickets is what Nebraska Athletics is going to starting this fall with all their sporting events that have spectators. And here to tell us more about that is the Senior Associate Athletic Director for Marketing and Multimedia, Brandon Meyer. Good evening, Brandon. How are you doing? Did you survive the 4th?
We did. Yeah. It was. We had good weather. It was fun.
Still have all your fingers, all your digits. You didn't blow anything off, right?
No, I'd rather watch them than light them. Do all that.
You and me.
My kids sure enjoy it. They make these snaps now that are almost like regular fireworks, so we had fun with those.
Good. Well, I'm glad you had fun. I'm glad everybody is safe with that. Well, big announcement today, and I know this is kind of a trend around sports, isn't it, to kind of take your tickets mobile?
For sure, yeah. No, we're excited about it, and a lot of it was brought on by obviously the COVID and the uncertainty of the season. But I think in the end, it's something that professional teams and some colleges have been doing for about 7 years ago. When I was working in Oklahoma, I remember the Oklahoma City Thunder going to it, and people were kind of clamoring. I think it was like 7 years ago. They said, we're going to an all-mobile ticket. So, the technology's evolved over the years, and it's gotten better. And, I think in the end it'll just be so much easier and more convenient for our fans. So,
my first experience with it was at the College World Series last year. The NCAA went to it at their events, and the first CWS that they used it was last year, and I thought it was very slick. Explain to the folks how this is going to work.
So, the easiest way is to download the new app. And in the app, there's a little ticket icon in the corner. And we've built the software right into the app to make it almost as easy and as dummy-proof as possible. But you log in with your account, and you're going to see your tickets in there. I want to say recent, but one thing that we've just added in the last month is kind of went all in on parking as well. So there'll be scanners at all the lots, and you'll be able to show your parking pass and that you get if you get a parking pass with your tickets, and that'll all be right there. And if you want to, if your family's going to be late or you don't want to use your parking, you just want to use your tickets, then you have the flexibility to text that to someone, and you get a bounce back. Once you accept, you transfer it to them. So no more meeting somebody in the Walmart parking lot 6 hours before the game to give them tickets. All you got to do is send them a text message, and they'll have it.
That's pretty sweet. And I know you know that there's a lot of Husker, particularly football fans, who share their tickets. They go to the odd number of games, and their buddies go to the even number of games, and they break up the costs or whatever. So that would work in that case as well, right? You'd have probably a primary recipient of the tickets, and then they'd have to send them to somebody else. Is that how that would work?
Yep, correct. If I'm a season ticket holder, I only want to share the first two games or the last two games, then I get in my app and I hit transfer, and and I should note that right now you can't transfer because none of those tickets have actually been loaded in until we make a determination on capacity. But yeah, it's that simple. And if I say, I'm gonna Uber to the game and give my parking pass to someone else, you can do that and easily text it to them and use your own ticket. So, again, very convenient and flexible for the fans, and honestly should be able to get in the gate quicker. So all they really, as long as your tickets are open, they scan and you go through. So,
Brandon, how far out will people see their tickets arrive? I mean, is it going to be similar to when they would normally get them in the mail? They may see them pop in their account. What kind of time frame do you think they should look for?
For sure. Normally they were mailed about 2 to 3 weeks, and that's what we're anticipating. If everything goes as planned this year as well.
Okay, and if somebody's worried about if their cell service around the stadium's not great, you offer Wi-Fi around the stadium, don't you? That they ought to be able to lock into that to at least pull their stuff up.
Correct. There's Wi-Fi around the stadium, and we encourage fans to download the app and put them in your wallet. Once they're in your wallet, you don't really need Wi-Fi or any cellular service to do that. So. That's kind of what we encourage fans to do, and then you don't have to worry about any of that. And it's pretty easy to do once you've got in the app and logged in. There's a button to transfer them to your wallet, and that is the best and the for sure way that you're going to get to the gate and not have any issues whatsoever.
Okay. I know some of our audience may just come to a game or two a year, and they utilize StubHub, which is also a partner of Husker Athletics. How does that work? Has that changed at all from what they've done with StubHub in the past?
No, the StubHub, would kind of remain a completely separate platform and should be the exact same as they've experienced in years past. So.
Very cool. Well, congratulations. I know this is probably an undertaking. I know you have some people you can kind of rely on who've done it before. A lot of the pro leagues have gone to this years past. I know it's a transition. It always is, right, when you do something like this around here. But I think it'll work out great. And obviously, whatever helps get fans in the stadiums or the Devaney Center for volleyball or Pinnacle for basketball, I'll take that right now.
For sure. I told our staff today, as we were talking about answering fans' questions, I said, Boyd Epley once said, or he said it a lot, but the great ones adjust. And, that's kind of what we're doing here. We're doing all we can to be prepared for, the different capacity concerns that we have, and we're hoping that we have a full stadium. But we're adjusting, and we think that this adjustment in the end is going to be better for everyone. So
that's great. Brandon, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for giving us some insight into this, and hopefully that helps some folks who maybe have some questions when they saw the announcement come out earlier today. We appreciate it, Brandon. Thank you. All
right, you got it. If they have any questions, too, just, there's videos online, and there's a website, and they can always call us, the ticket office, or they can even text us as well. Some of the instructions to text their questions are in the video. So
very good. Brandon, thank you. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Thanks, guys.
That's Brandon Meyer, Senior Associate Athletic Director for Marketing and Multimedia at the University of Nebraska, talking about the new app that's going to include your tickets from now on. So no more hand in your tickets in your hands anymore. It's all going to be in your app. And so we'll be working on that. You got plenty of time to kind of get yourself up to speed on all that. And there is a tutorial on there to give you some ability to kind of learn about that as well. Brandon joined us on our Sports Nightly Hotline, brought to you by the Woodhouse Auto Family, 866-487-5371. I mentioned last hour, Ben, that I went and bought my first college football magazine. So I was pouring over that, and I really hadn't done much of a dive into everybody's schedules. And what struck me was how many really good matchups in the Big Ten there are week one. We obviously know we're playing Purdue at Memorial Stadium, but there are two other conference matchups that weekend. Wisconsin opens a home game with Indiana on Friday night, and then on Saturday, Northwestern travels to Michigan State. So you have three conference matchups in week one. You a fan of that or not?
Yeah, I don't mind it. I think it definitely adds intrigue. I don't think necessarily one team has an advantage over the other. I think, overall, I think it's exciting for college football. I remember a few years ago we had that being the case with Purdue and Northwestern. That was a coming out party for Rondale Moore. I'm all about it. I think it certainly adds intrigue, and you're not exactly easing your way into the year, which makes it kind of fun.
There's also a really good non-conference matchup week 1 from the Big Ten. It's Michigan goes out to Washington to play the Huskies. So you talk about a huge 2 national brands that play week 1. The reason I'm bringing up the conference matchups is because in Adam Rittenberg's segment earlier in the hour, he talked about he really thinks because these conferences all might be different, that what we may see is only conference games this fall, and maybe you only play 9 weeks, and you play the 9 conference games you're scheduled to play, and that's all you're going to play this fall. If that's what we get, I would certainly take that. I don't know that Big Ten coaches want to go much above 9. I think they may go, okay, that's it. If we're going to play a 9-game schedule, that's all I want to do. And if you're telling me I can't play any non-conference teams because we don't know what kind of testing they're doing or not, but Adam threw that out there. That's been kind of in the back of my mind, too, that we just play a conference schedule, and you just play the 9 games you already have right now locked in, and that's going to be your college football season in 2020. I think I'd take that.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, with all the speculation, and it's crazy how that, if you were to think of the probability scale of there being college football, the ups and the downs that we've gone through in the last month and a half, it's been pretty crazy to see the trends go up and down and up and down. And, at this point right now, if, almost a stock market, it's a buy, buy low, sell high type of deal, and it's a low deal right now. So I'm going to sell high if that means I'm only getting conference games. That's what I'm taking. So, we all just want football. Obviously, we want it to be as normal as possible, but if it takes just a conference slate for us to get games in, I'm all for it. Let's go.
Nebraska is slated to open with a conference opponent in back-to-back years. Obviously, Purdue is on the schedule for this year, and this has completely been lost in all of COVID. Nebraska's still on the docket to go to Dublin next August to play Illinois to open up the year. So you got to hope that that's going to be okay. I mean, if we don't have this thing tackled by next August, we're all in a world of hurt, right? I mean, we all may be at the soup kitchen if we can't get college football or college sports cranked up for 13, 14 more months. It's going to be a whole different deal.
No doubt. And man, you think about what an opportunity that it is for the student athletes to be able to go experience that, and to have that already taken away from Notre Dame and Navy, to already have that taken away is unfortunate. And you sure hope that opportunity is still on the table for Nebraska. That's such a long ways away. It doesn't seem like that it's a bad situation, and there are going to be people that question, the cost. Ireland and their economy Aer Lingus is more than helping out the teams, Nebraska and Illinois, for accommodations for air travel and all those types of things. It would cost the athletic department a good chunk of change if they weren't getting helped out, but the programs wouldn't be interested if they were having to front all that coin to get everybody over there. So, in terms of saving money, I think that they are taken care of pretty well. Getting their student athletes overseas on a plane and getting put up, and obviously going to have to practice over there and whatnot. So, it is going to be more of an expense than going to Illinois to play the Illini, but I think overall the experience is worth it.
I keep getting stopped. You probably are too. Are we going to play? I mean, I bet I got asked that 8, 9 times just in the last 3 days. What do you think? We're going to play college football? That's why it was great getting Adam on to get his thoughts about this thing. I've been telling people I thought right after the 4th of July we would get some kind of decision. I'm going to hedge on that now. I think it's going to be later. I think it's going to be late July. I think these ADs know they have some more time. They want to see what happens the next couple of weeks with the infection rate around the country. Does it level off? Does it drop? Does it increase? I think that may guide them a little bit. And because I don't know that any of us anticipate full stadiums, getting everything kind of up and ready to run for a college football game may not be as detailed to do that when you're maybe only at 50% capacity or 30% capacity or whatever. So I think we have some time. I think it's going to be late July before we maybe get a decision on whether we're going to try this or not.
Yeah, and I think the important thing about the timetable is we've already gotten, some movement on getting the athletes to campus, starting the workouts. I know some schools have pulled the plug on the voluntary workouts right now with the testing, but we've already seen a couple of those hurdles already be jumped, and so now it's a timeliness deal. We have the NCAA's kind of schedule of guidelines of events. There are some things that are already put in place that are going to help that cause and help delay that decision from what we thought maybe early July to the end of July. I thought the whole talk of 80% stadiums, full stadiums, was premature when it happened, and I think this 3-4 week period of buffer is going to allow enough time to make a proper decision and make a smart decision at that. So I do think that it's something that's going to be still talked about and still be on the forefront of making the right decisions. And we got an announcement today from the athletic department to kind of further that safety with the ticketless situations that we're now in. But I think we're going to see more and more of that, more and more conversation and brainstorming of how we fix kind of these hurdles and make it as safe as possible for fans.
Let me switch gears to volleyball. We heard from John Cook a week or so ago talking about that they've had discussions with PBA, that maybe they would move their matches to PBA or some of their matches to PBA because if they get 50% capacity, they could put about their 8,000 fans in PBA and still practice social distancing for their home matches. The University of Texas this afternoon announced that they are moving their 2020 home matches to the Irwin Center, which is the home of their basketball program, which seats about 16,000, 17,000. I think it's a little bit bigger than PBA. Texas Volleyball currently plays in kind of a little bandbox at Gregory Gymnasium is where they play, a little bit like the Coliseum was for Husker Volleyball. So there's Texas already moving to a bigger venue to accommodate their fans so that they can maybe keep that would be a bigger crowd than Texas ever gets, because I think the Gregory Gym seats 4,500 or 5, so they would be able to do that. So you got some creativity going on, and Nebraska, and this is the first I heard of Texas doing this, Nebraska was at the forefront because John Cook mentioned this at least 2 weeks ago when he did his latest conversation with the Cooks.
Yeah, these are the types of questions that need to be asked and answered, and that it's not just a football deal. And I'm not sure the circumstances around some other sports. I'm really not as familiar with the different hurdles, but you got to imagine, Greg, college football's got to be the biggest one, right? I mean, you're talking about an empire of, in a lot of cases, upwards of 50 to 100,000 people. You would think the Rubik's Cubes are a little easier to solve with the smaller sports, with the attendance and with the manipulating of schedules and all of that. When college football is your breadwinner, your moneymaker, that's got to be the big problem. So, I would imagine a fair amount of change and a fair amount of differences with a volleyball season, with all the other fall sports. There's going to be changes, probably felt more so with the scheduling aspect of it, the start times of it, and the practices of it and all that. But I do think that football is going to be the biggest one to solve for the athletic departments, and just the sheer number of players, with the testing and the spreads. I mean, you're talking about 100, 150 players and up to 200, 250 staffers. So football is by far the biggest. The most people are affected, most people are involved, and there's most money involved into it. So it's not surprising that a lot of the conversation is geared towards football.
Yeah. 866-HUSKER1, 866-487-5371. The number if you want to dot us up with a comment or question. Back with our weekend winners coming up next. The number if you want to dot us up with a comment or question. Time for this week's weekend winners. Ben, what you got?
Yeah, boy, I had my weekend winner all set, and then Patrick Mahomes went and tried to ruin it. I mean, it's hard to not say that he's the – I know it's not technically the weekend, but these talks happened over the weekend. You're getting paid $450 million. You definitely win the day. I mean, he's the richest person of the day. There's no doubt about it, signing that type of contract. So, I mean, I was going to go with some of the buddies that I got to see and hang out with for the first time since having a baby. But sorry, boys, Patrick Mahomes just trumped you as of a couple hours ago.
Do you think – I mean, this will create a ripple effect through the league. There's going to be quarterbacks going, wait a minute, I know he's good, but is he that much better than me? I mean, what kind of a ripple effect do you think this has around the NFL?
Well, it's a Dak Prescott, situation. That's part of the reason why his contract was so hard to get done, because he knew this Patrick Mahomes deal was going. He had the Russell Wilson deal a while back. So, yeah, I mean, the ripple effect 100% is there. And you can make the argument, guys, it goes all the way back to when Ryan Tannehill signed that big deal with the Dolphins. Right. There was kind of that blah era of quarterbacks, and everyone was kind of fighting and jockeying for a long-time starter. And Ryan Tannehill in Miami was supposed to be one of them. And, really ever since that, it was, it's been quarterback signing for multiple years and lots of millions of dollars.
What do you think guys like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady think of this deal? Because they didn't sign anything even close to that.
They did not. But I mean, Tom Brady was at a place where I don't know that he would have gotten that much. But
yeah,
they got to be. They definitely got to be shaking their heads. Or even you go back to a few. You mentioned Dan Marino a little earlier. You go back to those elite quarterbacks in the 70s, 80s, and even 90s, to where they're playing 20 years later, and their life is significantly different than what it was back then.
All right. Austin, what do you have?
My weekend winners is a group of people that was dunking on a youth baseball scouting organization on Twitter over the weekend. I know Twitter is not usually a place we look for our winners necessarily, but this youth baseball scouting organization had been scouting a tournament of 9 and 10-year-olds. Put out a scouting report on them with write-ups about their velocity from the mound, how their arm action looked, how their swing looked, all sorts of stuff like that. And Twitter took it to them. They said it's ridiculous. You don't scout 9 and 10-year-olds. These are 4th and 5th grade kids. And I line up with that camp. Don't even scout middle schoolers. Start scouting in high school. Let these kids have fun, enjoy the game. I don't want to say that attitude is lacking, the attitude of fun and joy, but I think there are a lot of kids out there who are so focused on the scouting reports, what people are saying about them, parents worried about getting their kids noticed by all these programs. At 9 and 10 years old, it's ridiculous. Let the kids play was Major League Baseball's slogan there for a while. I agree with that. Let the kids have fun. Kudos to all those people kind of taking a sledgehammer to that mindset of trying to scout these 9 and 10-year-old kids and make them so hyper-focused on those metrics, those measurables, as opposed to just going out and playing the game and having fun with your friends.
Let's maybe let them go through puberty and let their bodies develop before we start dissecting what type of pros they're going to be.
Very good. All right. I had several choices, I thought, for weekend winners. My first choice was Kanye West, who announced he's running for president.
Do you think, what are the odds he knows what a political party is?
He's already missed the deadline to even file in like 10 or 12 states. That was maybe this bizarre tweet I've seen in a long time when that came out on the 4th of July. So I just missed that. Then I was going to go with Bryson DeChambeau, who won this week's the Rocket Mortgage Tournament in Detroit. But Ben and you and Nick were just slamming DeChambeau. I don't know what you have against him, but he's just been playing great golf week after week, smashing the ball 370 yards on his drive.
Yeah, ripping cameramen for ruining his image, and I don't know, maybe not smash your 60-degree wedge into the sand. Maybe that's ruining your image, not a guy shooting you do that. Yeah, that guy can go away.
He looks odd, doesn't he? I mean, he looks too beefed up.
Well, he sounds so disingenuous when he speaks, too. Like, it just sounds so forced. It sounds so rehearsed. It sounds so fake. Like, I don't believe a word that guy says.
Well, I was going to go with him, but I knew you'd slam it, so I opted not to go with him. I'm going to go with NASCAR. They had a great weekend. They ran at the Brickyard 400 of the weekend. NBC had the TV ratings for that, so they were up 39% over 2019's average viewership. So big weekend for NASCAR. Big weekend for the Indianapolis Speedway because they ran Indy cars there on a road course on Saturday, and then the NASCAR boys took over on Sunday. So that was a huge weekend in Indianapolis. I remember one of the times we flew in there, Ben, I was able to see the Speedway from the plane. It's a big plot of land. I mean, that thing covers, I don't know how many acres. It's a lot.
It's hard to miss because there's nothing out there. You know, we drove by like, well, I don't know what that is, but that's definitely something.
It does stick up there. So big weekend at Indy, big weekend for NASCAR with their ratings going up. I believe it was Kevin Harvick won the Brickyard 400. So after I dismissed Kanye and Bryson for obvious reasons, I went with NASCAR's ratings. So
well played.
Yeah. All right, tomorrow night, Top 10 Tuesday. We, at this point, 24 hours out, 23 hours out, do not have a topic yet.
We might just not have to do it. I mean,
No.
time might elapse.
The folks expect it. They demand it. They want that. So we've got 23 hours between you and Austin and I to come up with a topic.
Okay.
So we'll put our heads together and try to come up with that. Coming up later on in the week, this week's edition of the Husker Huddle with Jeremiah Searles is Alex Lewis, who's now playing in the National Football League. Jeremiah caught up with him. We'll have that for you on Wednesday. And our greatest games on Friday night, brought to you by the Nebraska Lottery. We only have a couple of those to go. We're going back to 1983. That scoring explosion team finished the regular season at Oklahoma against the Sooners. We'll have that for you coming up on Friday night. Again, brought to you by the Nebraska Lottery. Good hour here. Thanks to Adam Rittenberg. Sorry we had trouble getting hooked up with him, but we got him on. And also Brandon Meyer from the Athletic Department to tell us about the new ticket app. It's going to take some getting used to for everybody, but you'll figure it out. We'll get through it. And again, there is a tutorial on that site if you want to pull up on that, or you can download some videos on how to get that done. You'll be able to get this thing figured out. It'll be a nice step forward, and also hopefully gets more people through the gates for some Husker football, volleyball, basketball coming up in the coming months. That'll do it for this hour. Stick around. Another hour to come.